December 2003. It's a time when Australia had pretty much forgotten what it's like to lose, especially at home. It's a time when India didn't have much of a memory of what it's like to win in Australia. But then, over the course of 5 glorious days in the grueling heat of Adelaide, typifying the challenge of Test cricket, one man defied it all with a performance that typified the nickname he's come to be known as to the world. It's an absolute privilege for us on ESPNcricinfo to have the company of Rahul Dravid. I didn't take that nickname because I know you're not too enthused about it. I'm also aware you're not.
It doesn't really matter. I don't really care about it, to be honest.
I'm also aware you don't usually like speaking much about your own achievements, but over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to try to break down that wall. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Yasha. Pleasure to be here.
21 years on, 233 and 72 not out are numbers etched in Test cricket folklore. But what our latest exercise has shown is that it's still fresh in fan memory because it's managed to beat, in a vote, a lot of performances from recent years in series victories. How does that make you feel?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it, but yeah, wouldn't have voted for myself, put it that way. Probably I've got a lot of recency bias as well. I think the way India's performed, I think in Australia over the last two series in particular, winning series there, I think that counts for a lot. However great my performances were, or our performances were, we couldn't actually win that series. We came close, but we couldn't, get the wickets on the final day in Sydney that we needed. The last two teams that have gone to Australia have done that, and that's a fantastic achievement and a terrific achievement, and some absolutely sensational performances right through those. I don't know which of those made your list, but some absolutely sensational performances in the last two series as well.
I can inform you that in the final, you beat Rishabh Pant's 89 not out at Gap.
Jeez, that's a tough one to beat. Yeah, I think Rishabh's was an absolutely, it was an incredible performance, watching Rishabh there and chasing that, chasing to get 89, to win that test match in Gabba, everything on the line with such a depleted side, to put in that kind of performance under that kind of pressure, truly sensational. And I think what a special cricketer he's been, really. I think just taken to test cricket like a duck to water. It's just phenomenal. It's hard to imagine that, after Dhoni left, you felt there might be some time, or there might take time for someone to come in and replace him. And I'm not saying he's replaced him, but certainly, in Test cricket, his performances have been absolutely sensational.
All right. Now it's time for the uncomfortable stuff. We focus solely on Adelaide 2003. Let's start right from the heat of the battle. Australia have smashed 556 in 1.5 days. You've walked in, seen wickets fall, 85 for 4, VVS Laxman joins you in the middle. What are you thinking at that time?
I'm just thinking I've got the captain run out. I better do something meaningful here. Yeah, totally my mistake, sort of. That one. I will own up. I will own up to that one. That was my mistake. I think you're just trying to bat. I think you're just trying to build a partnership. You're just trying to. 556 is a huge score. You're just trying to stitch together a partnership. We've lost 4 wickets. And you're just trying to sort of, in some ways, think about getting close, and batting together. The thing with Laxman and me is that we had some couple of really big partnerships before that. We'd done it once in Calcutta in 2001. Even in a domestic game once, we was playing for South Zone against West Zone, we had a really big partnership. So we had kind of batted a lot together and, built these partnerships. Not that we were thinking about that when you go there. But I think the idea was really just to bat and try and build partnerships, stitch something together, and I think as the partnership grew, wicket was pretty good wicket to bat on. Ball got a bit softer, runs started flowing a lot easier, and it's always nice batting with Laxman as well, right? Because he's just a beautiful player to watch and such a lovely player, and really someone who sort of attacked back at thing, in some ways complimented me quite well in the way we went about our sort of innings. So just really trying to build a partnership.
I do know that many from both the camps, your teammates as well as the Australians, did very soon into the partnership start getting flashbacks of Kolkata 2001. But you'd think of 300 plus partnerships, especially when you look at scorecards many years later and feel like, okay, it must have just been batters dominating. But there were lots of passages through this partnership where runs weren't coming easily. Like the first session on day 3, runs were really hard to come by. What do you remember of negating those periods?
I'll be very honest, I don't remember too much. I kind of try and move on from things, but certainly I know that it wasn't just all it wasn't all one-way traffic. I think they challenged us, and as you would expect, with Australia, they would challenge you, and there were spells and periods there where you felt you had to sort of see through, especially when the new ball came on, the second new ball, and you kind of felt that there were periods where you had to ensure that you didn't lose your wicket and you were able to get through those periods. But in general, I think Adelaide is a really fast-scoring ground. Boundaries, short, square are really small. And you could just capitalize on any width they gave you or anything that they overpitched. It just felt that kind of wicket where there was value for your shots and you could play them. And I think we both once we got through some tough periods, I think we just kept doing that.
Right, so let's jump to the middle of day 3. It's a Sunday afternoon in Adelaide. You and Laxman have fought through till lunch and beyond. You faced 222 balls, the first 222, no risk, no chances. Then of the 223rd, comes something different. The only 6 of the entire Indian innings. What happened there?
It was instinctive. He bounced and in general, I would like pick and choose when I played the hook shot. Early on in my innings, or if the ball was hard and new, I kind of avoided playing the hook shot or the pull shot. I don't know, it was just instinctive. For some reason, I just went for it. And as I went for it, I knew I didn't get a really good connection on it, and it sort of just, felt like I kind of got the top edge of it, and I thought, oh my God, that could have gone anywhere. But yeah, I just think luckily for me, just was pretty short boundary as well, so it's kind of sailed over, went for 6, and yeah, really happy moment, to get 100, to get it that way. But I wasn't thinking about it; it just happened like instinctively. It's one of those ones you see it short and you go for it, and you just take on the boundary or you take on the field. I think they had only one guy at deep fine leg. They didn't really have a deep square leg, so maybe that was subconsciously in the back of my mind as well, and just made me go for it because I felt I saw it early.
I do want to prod you further on that moment because 2 things which felt out of character. A, just the shot, and also then the celebration that followed. If we look through 36 Test centuries and even at the 12 ODI ones, there are 2 which stand out where you're visibly more pumped in the celebration, both in Tests against Australia. Just a sign of how much it meant to you.
I mean, they were the best team, of our generation or of that time, that period. Clearly, Australia was the number 1 team in the world. They had great success. They had the record speaks for itself, during that period, and there was no denying that. So, any runs against them was always special. Scoring runs against them, and then also just sort of doing that in Australia. We weren't expected to particularly do well in that series. We sort of saved the Test match in Brisbane. The weather did help us in that saving that Test match in Brisbane, and then we came to Adelaide, and it's sort of just to be able to get that 100, losing 4 wickets. I haven't gone through the way I've celebrated all my 100s, but yeah, I think any runs against Australia, I think, seemed to have a lot of value during that period.
Yeah, and this is where I'd like to just go back in time a little, because as far as your own individual story coming into this game goes, 4 Tests in Australia before this had got less than 150 runs. Was that something that was eating at you?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense that I hadn't had a great tour of 99. It was the first time I went to Australia. And I always wanted to do well in Australia because I think, every time you grow up as a kid, I think sort of getting up really early in the morning to watch Test matches in Australia or to listen to commentary of Test matches in Australia. There's some great visuals of Test matches there, and, the grounds, and these are iconic grounds, right? You've grown up hearing about, you've heard of the greats of India who've played on these grounds. So you want to be part of that. Going there in 99 and having a really terrible series was a big disappointment. In some ways forced me to course correct as well in my own career, and forced me to recognize that I needed to develop certain areas of my game and constantly get better. So yeah, there was certainly a determination to come back the next time around and do better.
Could you talk a bit more about what particular areas you worked on before 2003?
Not specifically, but I just think I had to open up my offside game a little bit more. Certainly from the early part of my career, I was a very strong leg side player. Growing up on the mat in Bangalore and playing a lot of cricket on matting wickets, you tended to be a very strong leg side player. But I think my offside game was not as strong as it should have been for international level, and people sort of bowled a lot more on the channel outside the off to you. So yeah, I think it meant that I had to sort of develop that skill quite a lot. The cut shot, maybe the cover drives, ensuring I got fully forward and back. I mean, very basic stuff. I mean, it's not like one aha thing that I had to do, but yeah, just the realization that when you go to these places, you have to be at the top of your game if you want to succeed.
Going back to that time, if you look at 99, one of the things that stood out is that Shane Warne was getting your wicket a few times. In that sense, does a week before Adelaide, Brisbane, when it's petering out into a draw, just towards the end, you get to bat for a small period, and you face Stuart MacGill, and the first few balls you faced from him in that second innings, you hit him for fours, you run a 3. How much did that affect your confidence going into Adelaide?
I don't think I was thinking about it too much. I mean, I'll be honest. I got a few runs. I think it was not out at the end. I think in Brisbane, if I remember, I can't remember.
43 or 47.
Okay, I didn't know the number, but yeah, I'm sure any runs that you score, right, I think give you some confidence, right, give you some belief that you're batting well, things are working in place. Got out early in the first innings, so obviously just being not out, I think, in the second innings and being there at the end, I'm sure would have given me a bit of confidence. But what I remember really from that tour in particular, we went quite early on the tour. We went there and we played 2 practice games in Australia before that, and I remember actually reaching almost 2 weeks before the first test started. So by the time we got to Adelaide, I think we'd been there for a fair length of time, and just getting used to those conditions and used to those wickets was something I think that really helped. More than the 43, I think the fact that I just felt really prepared, I think, going into the Adelaide Test match.
Does that interestingly point to how much cricket has changed in the 2 decades since? Because India used to go much earlier.
Yeah.
Now with the schedule, you have an Indian side arriving in Australia, barely getting time to warm up.
I think this one's a little bit better. I think they've been able to go at least 10-12 days before. But I've seen tours now. I've been a coach for a while now. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges I faced is, finding time to prepare your teams, because just the sheer volume of cricket or the amount of cricket that is being played. I mean, we're lucky India is able to play 2 separate teams. So there's a team in South Africa which is playing 4 T20s, which has no relation or connection with what is happening in Test cricket, and we're able to be very successful there. But you can just imagine, right, if we had to play that and then go from there to Australia. So I think just the nature of tours and the nature of schedules have become such that it's become very hard, I think, to have that kind of preparation time and the kind of thing. So those were great days. I mean, my first tour in '96 in England, we had, I think, 6 or 7 practice games before I played a game. So yeah, I mean, you can't even, I think, dream of those kind of tours and those kind of times. So, which is a shame, because I think the beauty of some of these tours used to be that you get to spend a lot of time in the country and you get to play some of these, I would say, less pressure games to develop and build your game. So it's tougher on the current cricketers and tougher on them because they don't get those level of opportunities, I think. But the flip side is they get a lot more exposure. So it's not that when you went to '99 to Australia, I remember the team that before '99 that they had gone, it was '92, and then we went in 2003. So for 4 years in the middle, you never went, right? All tours where you went for 1 days and the test matches. There was no T20, so you went for the 1 days and the test matches together. So for 4 years, you had no exposure to that country. I think today, because of A tours and because of one-day cricket sometimes being separate, you get a lot of exposure to these countries without necessarily going there to play test cricket. So things have changed a little bit, there's no doubt about it, and it's just different generations, different eras, different schedules.
The one thing also markedly different going into this particular series is that for the first time in 25 years, India arrive in Australia without you or Cheteshwar Pujara at number 3. That role has been very vital to India's success in Australia over the years. Is that a role they could miss?
We've got Shubman Gill, who's batting as a terrific player. I mean, he's had some great success in Australia the last time as a young man who went there, and everyone talks about Rishabh's 80, and rightly so. But I think Shubman got 91. Yeah, he got 91 to set the game off on that fifth morning. So, no, he's a fine player. He's a great kid, and he's learning and he bats differently, slightly to me and Pujara, but very, still a very, very good player. And runs on the top will be important. Now, whether it comes from 1, 2, or 3, or 4, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to need one of that top 4 or 2 of the top 4, to be very honest, to have great series. And that really helps in Australia. If 2 of your top 4 can have big series, then I think you really set yourself up very well, because the nature of the game is such that with the Kookaburra ball and those conditions, if you can get through that initial period and have, sort of your top four can soak in a lot of that period, it really allows your lower order to be able to control and dominate those games. So, yeah, it's not about, missing me or Pujara. They're just going to need runs from the top four, two of them at least.
All right, I've taken you back in time and taken you forward, but now back to Adelaide. We're into day 4. With your double century ensured Australia's lead is 33. The test match is 290 overs in, and you've been on the field for all but 12. Were you knackered?
I was tired. I mean, when you're batting well, you're never really tired. I mean, honestly, there's tiredness, but there's so much of mental freshness and clarity, and you're just loving batting there. I remember the weather being warm, but not obsessively hot as it can get in Australia at times. But really pleasant days of cricket, and what greater joy is there than to bat and score runs. I think that's what we all play for. That's what you train for. That's what you practice for. So I think obviously a little physically tired, but I just remember really being excited about playing and batting well, and I felt I was batting well. So really excited about wanting to keep doing that and just keep batting.
So in that case, lucky for you that Ajit Agarkar ensured you were back batting very soon, because in the course of 2 sessions, or less than 2 sessions, the test match, which had been a slow burner, had turned on its head. You've spoken about the second innings and that you didn't feel that much in control. It got much tougher to bat in that case?
It had got a little bit tougher to bat. The wicket was a little bit more up and down, as can happen in Adelaide. It certainly started doing a little bit more, and run making wasn't easy. It became a bit slower, started sort of deviating a little bit more of the cracks. But yeah, I just think that Ajit's spell really gave us a chance to be able to set up the 5th day, and I think that's the thing about being a batsman, right? However many runs you score or whatever you do, I think you need your bowlers to be able to take 20 wickets, and that I think is, that was a special thing. I mean, if they had scored, even if they had scored 50 or 60 more runs, it would have become very difficult for us to potentially chase that on the last day, because they could have, even if they hadn't been able to get us out, they could very easily have slowed the game down to the level that we wouldn't have been able to score those runs. So it was actually just kind of worked out in some ways just perfectly. They got a little bit of a lead, but Ajit's spell meant that we were chasing something like 220 or 230, and not 280 or 290. Suddenly, and the game finished on the 5th day after tea, I think that. So those 50, 60, 70 runs probably would have ended up in the test match becoming a draw. So, that's how fine those margins were. And just the fact that we were able to bat on the 4th day evening meant that, look, we knew we had a chance on the last day. So Ajit, so it's a really, really good spell from Ajit, I think, just to knock over Australia, get those wickets, bowl some really good balls. Then there was that real excitement on that last day of something special could happen here. And I remember waking up on the 5th day thinking, the job is really half done, even though I was tired and been on the field for a long time, but just feeling like the job was half done as well. And I think one of the things that gave me a lot of satisfaction in that match as well, apart from the runs that I scored, was the catch that I took. I think caught Damien Martin of Sachin, one of the ones. So, I think those are things that you really remember about those test matches. Again, in a critical phase in the game, to be able to pick up that catch, Martin and then Sachin got, I think, out as well. So, I think small things that really stand out.
Yeah, in fact, both those wickets were old Tendulkar caught.
Yeah, so it was lovely to take those catches as well and play a part in that part of the innings as well. No one was going to give me the ball, but it was nice to take some catches.
But now, just to that 72 not out, between the fatigue of having spent so much time out in the middle, the knowledge that batting was now tougher, and the enormity of what was now seemingly attainable for win in Australia, do you rate this among the more demanding innings you've ever played?
It was a tough. It was satisfying. It was very satisfying. To be able to score that 72 and be there at the end and stay not out. It's always something that you dream of being there at the end, of remaining not out, of winning the game for your country, hitting the final shot. It's things you've kind of dreamt of as a kid. You go to these foreign lands and this is what you want to do. To be in that position, to be able to do that. And as you get to about sort of 10, 15 runs from winning that, and you think, okay, I think we've got this covered now. You really feel it was a really good feeling of satisfaction, and just to soak in that crowd and the atmosphere and the number of Indian fans that were there, and to know that we were on the cusp of something which is quite special for us as a team, because we hadn't really done it as a team. I think over the years, people have done it a lot more often, and it's become a little bit more regular now. But that was something. Probably we hadn't won a Test match in Australia for I don't know how long before that.
22 years.
22 years, right? So then it just felt like a really really nice thing to be a part of.
There's also a great sporting moment from the finish. Steve Waugh fetching the ball from the square boundary, getting it all the way to you, and handing it over to you as you walk off in celebration.
Yeah, I mean, great. I mean, hats off to him and great respect for Steve. I grew up admiring Steve a lot, in a sense. I remember having conversations with him when we played against each other in 95, 96. Always really admired the way he went about playing his cricket and the kind of fight and the toughness that he showed. And then just for him to have the presence of mind to be able to pick up that and give it to me and say that's something that you will cherish in the future. And he was right. I mean, I got him to sign it, and I have it there, and we have some stuff I've collected, and the ball is one of those ones that is really special.
Just to the absolute end of the Test now, there are great accounts of you staying back in the dressing room, soaking the moment until hours after the Test was over. I've also read one account which says the only time you were on unsure footing throughout the Test was when you made the walk back to the hotel room after the Test was done.
Again, I think sport is about memories, right? I think great memories. And I think one of the things you remember is a lot of the details, like that you've asked me about this Test match. I mean, yes, some of the stuff just come back into your mind when you ask these questions. But you don't really remember the nitty-gritties, right? A lot of the stuff I think you've asked me, I've had to scratch my head and think about a lot. And, I can't really remember. But it's these memories, right? When you win games and you celebrate with your friends, and you're sitting in the dressing room with a couple of your teammates, and drinking cold water. It's great fun. It's things you remember. It's memories you have. I think we really celebrated that and enjoyed that. And I think even today, like some of us when we meet, we talk about being there and sitting there and just just really enjoying that when everyone had left, and there was no one left on the ground, and I think that's, I mean, honestly for me that is really, I tell a lot of the young players that I coach now, and I tell them that in the end, you will become 50, your hair will become white, it's a fact of life. But I think you not so much remember the runs you made and the centuries you scored, and I mean your stats, and I mean honestly it all goes off, right? Somebody else comes in and somebody else does it, but it's the memories, right? It's these special moments that you always remember, and they stay a part of you. They become part of who you are, and that's what you cherish, and that's what you remember. So yeah.
Can you confirm that the two architects of this victory, yourself and Ajit Agarkar, were the ones who consumed the most cold water?
I'm not speaking for Ajit, man. He can speak for himself. Ajit has better capacity for cold water than I have. That's much I'll admit. Sorry, Ajit.
Great. 21 years later, the two of you in tandem, as coach and selector, also have a World Cup win. And that takes me to my final question to you. Adelaide 2003, Bridgetown 2024, the moment you treasure the most.
Oh, again, it's hard to, they're all great memories, Yash. You can't, people keep asking me rank this and rank that, and I can't rank my innings, and you can't rank, I don't know, how do you rank memories, right? It's like saying, what is better, the birth of your first child or your second child? I mean, how are you going to, I don't know. It's like, and I'm not comparing these innings to my children. Please, that's an incredible, much bigger memory. But so
let me correct that question then. Adelaide 2003, Bridgetown 2024. What is the difference between the two moments?
I think the difference is that in Bridgetown you're just a facilitator, right? I think in the end of the day in Bridgetown, what me and my team did was we helped Rohit and his team achieve it. I didn't score a single run in Bridgetown, or I didn't take any catches or wickets or anything in Bridgetown. But we facilitated it. You're part of a journey. You're there to help and support Rohit and his vision and his team and what they are trying to create, and there's a great satisfaction in that, and there's a real happiness in that, because it's tough, it's not easy, but it's something that you treasure and you part of. Of course, in Adelaide, you have the opportunity, and you're lucky to have the opportunity to actually do things yourself, to pull your socks up when it's 4 down for something and build a partnership with Laxman, to go out and take those catches, to recognize that a second innings 70 will be probably more valuable than the 200 in the first innings, and you can do something about it with your skill. So they're just different in the way they are. Not that you're doing stuff there only for yourself, but you can actually kind of pull up your socks and do stuff when you're playing. As a coach, you just help people achieve their dreams, and I think there's joy and satisfaction in both things.
Correct. This has gone on longer than we promised, but
yeah,
in keeping with the way you batted, much longer than anyone expected.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Thank you.